You don't actually find out what your faith is built on when things are going well. You find out what it's built on when something breaks. And most of us don't even realize what we're standing on until it starts to shake. Welcome to an extra shot of Grace in the Grind. This is where we slow down and just stay with the conversation a little bit longer. Not more polished, just more honest. So grab your coffee and let's sit in this together. Jesus says something that sounds simple. Two people build. Same effort, same kind of life. One stands, one doesn't. And the difference isn't what they built. It's what they built it on. And I think if we're honest, we assume we already know the answer to what we're building on. God. And again, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying sometimes it's not the whole truth. Because if you slow down and look at your life, for a lot of us, it's been a mix. Sometimes our faith is built on people. And we know that because we've seen what happens when people fail. And Scripture never hid that reality. David, a man after God's own heart, failed. Peter walked with Jesus, still denied him. So the issue isn't that people fail. Because we know that. Not just in theory. We've seen it. We've all seen prominent pastors, leaders, people who have done a lot of good, people who seemed steady, strong in their faith, have a very public fall. And when that happens, it hits different. Because on one hand, some situations, maybe things weren't what they appeared to be. But on the other hand, some of them were believers. They loved Jesus. They were walking with him. And they still failed. And that shouldn't shock us as much as what it does. Because that's true of all of us. We're all still being sanctified. We're all still in process. But here's where this really matters. If your faith is built on them, when they fall, it doesn't just disappoint you. It starts to shake everything. Because now, you're not just dealing with their failure, you're questioning your foundation. And that's the moment that reveals something. Maybe your faith wasn't built on God the way you thought it was. Maybe it was built on someone who was never meant to carry that kind of weight. And Scripture is really clear about the foundation. No one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Not a pastor, not a leader, not a church. Christ. And this shows up in other ways too. Sometimes our faith is built on doing the right things, being disciplined, being consistent, trying to live morally. And again, that matters. But it can quietly turn into something else. If we do the right things, things should work out. And that's where Job matters. Because Job did everything right. And everything still fell apart. His health, his family, his stability. And if his faith had been built on outcomes, it would have collapsed. But instead, he says, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. That's not outcome-based faith. That's foundation-level faith. And this is where it gets real for us, because pressure doesn't show up in theory. It shows up in real life. Maybe a child gets sick, or doesn't get better. Maybe you lose your job. Maybe your health changes. Maybe a leader or someone you love fails. Someone challenges everything you believe. Or you meet people who don't follow Christ, but if you're honest, they seem like really good people. Maybe even kinder than some Christians you've known. And suddenly, you're wrestling with things you weren't prepared for. And Scripture actually tells us this will happen. Hebrews says everything that can be shaken will be shaken. Not to destroy you, to reveal what you're standing on. Because whatever shakes your faith reveals what your faith is resting on. And if it's resting on people, outcomes, things working, life making sense, then those moments don't just hurt. They unravel everything. But if your faith is built on Christ, even when those things don't hold, He still does. So don't rush past this. Ask yourself honestly, what am I actually trusting when life gets hard? Because that answer matters. And Jesus doesn't just expose the problem, He gives you the answer. Build on Him.